When you read that story about when Moses' father-in-law came to visit him, when they were in the wilderness, Jethro, his father-in-law, right? Moses got up early in the morning and sat down. And you know how numerous the Israelites were. One by one, each person will come to Moses and, deliver their case. And Moses will be the judge. He would do this from morning till evening. Every single day. So when his father-in-law came, he said, "What is this business that you're doing? You're one man with these millions of people, and you're the only one sitting down listening to each one of them case by case. You're gonna wear yourself out. Why are you doing this?" And then, but you would think, now Moses was getting worn out. Little by little, he was getting worn out. You would think that God would take care of that. You would think God would say, "This is too much for you. Let me take the load off your shoulders." No. God was staying quiet. There's a lesson in this. God was staying quiet. So his father-in-law, Jethro, was like, "No, this is what you're going to do. You're going to pick several elders that are among, each tribe. You're going to dignify them for this position. Chief over hundreds, chief over thousands, right? Men that are righteous and just. And they're going to hear the case, not just you alone, because it's too much for you." And then that's what happened. So that's what Moses started to do. Okay. Why didn't God do that? The lesson is, sometimes God waits for you to ask him. Further down the line, Moses did get worn out. God said, "I will take some of the spirit that is upon you, that I've given to you, and I will divide it upon different men, so that they too become prophets." And then Joshua got a little jealous because he wanted Moses to have all the glory. And then Moses said, "No, I wish all of God's sons were prophets, so that God would put his spirit upon them." Sometimes God is just waiting for you to ask him. You got to pray to him. That's what's going to set you apart from the other man. Quick edit. I said when Moses and the Israelites were close to the wilderness. No, I meant when they were closer to the promised land. God took some of the spirit that was upon him and, apportioned it to the other men. I think it was 70 men. No, forget it. I've forgotten. But you know how I always talk about that we shouldn't use the name Jesus, that we should use the name Yeshua or Yehoshua or Joshua or Jehoshua in English. Now, speaking of Moses and speaking of Joshua, Joshua, the successor of Moses when Moses died, the one who took Moses' place, his name was Hosea, or his name is Hosea. I like to use a present term because even though they're dead, they're actually really alive and they're going to come back to life. So I don't speak of my mom as in past tense. I speak of my mom in present tense because she is alive. Everyone dead is alive in the eyes of God. He is God of the living and not of the dead. But anyway, Hosea, Joshua's name is Hosea. But even though that was his name, the scripture says that Moses kept calling him Joshua or Jehoshua. Said even though his name was Hosea, Moses kept calling him Joshua or Jehoshua. Why did the Bible make that an important factor? Because Hosea was the man who was going to take Moses' spot when Moses died. He was the one who was going to take the Israelites, God's chosen people, into the promised land. And right before they got to the promised land, they met an angel, or they met a man. They didn't know he was an angel. They met a man, and then Joshua asked him, "Are you with us or are you against us?" And then the angel said, "I am neither, but I am the chief of the army. I'm the chief of God's army." This is Michael the archangel. But I'm not gonna get into it. But I know Michael the archangel is Christ. But this is Joshua meeting Joshua. Is Christ's name Joshua? Well, in Hebrew, his Hebraic name is Yehoshua or Yeshua, which in English is Jehoshua or Joshua. So Joshua, Yehoshua, Yeshua, whom Moses kept calling him Yeshua, met Yeshua right before they got to the promised land. And you remember the angel that was guarding the Israelites, that God said, watch yourself that you do not upset him, because he's a special angel. That is Michael. He's the one protecting them. And he's the one that when they finally got to the promised land that he was protecting them to get to, he finally met Joshua face to face. So Joshua is beating Joshua. You see what I'm saying? Now, that's the reason why Moses kept calling Hosea Joshua, because he's going to deliver them into the promised land, or he's going to take them into the promised land. Now, this is something else. When God's people were in the nation of Egypt, that is like us today in the nation of Egypt. We are slaves in this land. We want to get to the promised land. We want to get to paradise, right? So we are in Egypt, aka today, this modern world. Then after Armageddon, which is, you could say, the 10 plagues that came on Egypt, Armageddon on Egypt, we are delivered into what? We don't go to paradise yet. We don't go to the promised land yet. We go to the wilderness. When after Armageddon, we go to Judgment Day. Judgment Day is 1,000 years. We are in the wilderness. Then after the wilderness, we go to the promised land, which is paradise. You see, it's the same correlation. Christ is the one who is going to deliver us into the promised land. Joshua was the one who delivered the nation of Israel into the promised land. Joshua and Joshua, Yeshua and Yeshua, Yehoshua and Yehoshua. That's why even though his name was Hosea, Moses kept calling him Jehoshua. God's spirit impelled him to call that man Yeshua. We should not be using the name Jesus. Pegasus, Ephesus, Dionysus, Jesus, all of them has a strong affiliation with Zeus. Pegasus, horse of Zeus. Ephesus, city in dedication to Zeus. Olympus, temple of Zeus. Tarsus, sweat of Zeus. Jesus, which sounds nothing like Yeshua. Again, in English, it should be Joshua. Why are we saying Jesus? And Jesus comes from the Latin word Isus. Isus, and you're saying it has nothing to do with Jesus? Are we really that stupid? Didn't the devil already convince many to think that Christ was born on December 25th so that the pagans could convert to Christianity? Didn't he do the same thing with Easter? Don't you think he would do the same thing with Jesus? So that the Greeks could convert to Christianity and say, well, you guys believe Christ is God. We believe Zeus is the chief god. So we're going to call him Isus. We should not be using that name. That's just a side point. But I keep talking about that because that's very important. We keep calling on pagan gods, which God strictly told us we should watch ourselves to not do. All right, later.